In today's episode, I'll say goodbye to my most viewed project, the multifunctional sofa bed, and tidy things up in this corner of the studio. I'll build a custom cabinet featuring a sliding top and trapezoidal drawers. But how are these going to open? Let's find out. I used plywood from the home center for this project. It isn't the best quality, but it is lightweight, which felt really convenient to me after so many heavy projects in the last few years. I asked the guys at the store to cut the sheets into smaller pieces, so that's why you don't see me maneuvering large boards. Since this is a shop project, I did make an effort to keep my perfectionism away. Not sure that I could actually do it, but at least I tried. Here I was building the trapezoidal section of the cabinet and will join the pieces with pocket holes. I'm not making fine furniture here, so I went with simple and quick solutions. I didn't use glue in these joints or any carcass joints really, because the whole piece wouldn't pass through the studio door if I ever wanted to move it out. So I clamped everything nicely with the corner clamps and drove all the pocket hole screws positioned at the top and bottom faces of the carcass. Those will be hidden, of course. Now that I have the cabinet outlined, I can start making the drawers. These were all made with 15mm lightweight plywood that I cut into strips so the table saw. Some of these pieces will receive angles to conform to the trapezium shape. So in this case, I tilted the table saw blade to 63.4 degrees, which was the angle I could measure from my 3D model. I also got the dimensions for the drawer bottoms I'm cutting here from the drawing. With all the parts cut, I could glue and screw everything together. The backing panels are screwed with simple butt joints since they will never be seen. The front panels were attached with pocket holes that are visible now, but will be hidden by the false fronts later. Being a shop project, I didn't care too much about the looks and nailed the bottom panels into the drawer boxes. The angles and dimensions worked according to plan, which was a great relief. Drawing the 3D model before starting construction is one of the best things I've learned to do to give my brain some space and reduce stress. I find it really helpful to make those visual and technical decisions in advance, along with having a relatively organized project board. So I use this free tool for organizing my creative projects called Milanote. Creating a board for this corner cabinet helped me to plan everything and make it happen more efficiently. You can see that I dropped a bunch of screenshots from the 3D model I made. I also have written notes and to-do lists to keep track of my progress. And what I love the most is that I can visualize all my project planning in one place. As you can see on my home board, I have this priority plan, multiple folders regarding my project and thoughts, and lists of ideas for the future. Milanote can also be an excellent tool for working with a team. For example, here's a board that I share with my sister. She's a designer and illustrator and also helps me out with the online shop, so it's great to have a tool where we can share our thoughts and discuss them further, write down the main points of our meetings, place images, and make lists of the stuff that each one should do. We also get notifications when the other fulfills tasks or sees new changes in the boards, which is a great bonus. You can use the Milanote app on your phone, tablet, or computer, which will automatically update on all devices. Milanote is available for free with no time limit, and you can sign up using the link in the description to start your next creative project. Thanks to Milanote for sponsoring this video. And now let's solve the mystery of how these trapezoidal drawers will work. So, my initial thought was to search for drawer slides that could extend 4 times their size. I didn't find much about this online and thought maybe I can simply connect 2 drawer slides. So I went back online searching for examples of this kind of application. It also didn't lead to any relevant information, so I was left to test it out myself. All I did was to connect the component that is supposed to be attached to the drawer box to another slide. I also had to ensure the bolt heads and nuts were small enough not to disturb the sliding motion. I can now reattach the parts, and this is how I got double drawer slides. And by the way, these are not the typical 12mm or half-inch thick slides. These are heavy-duty ones with 90mm or 3/4 of an inch of thickness. I will leave the link below in case you want to check them out. I attached the double drawer slides to the short side of the cabinet and the longer ones to the right side. The first drawer was screwed in place, and now the moment of truth. It opens regularly, and then... Yes! It works! Fantastic! I installed the rest of the slides and decided to remove the rubber crash pads from the double slides because the rubber made the drawers hard to open and close. I had to disengage the drawers one by one during installation because I couldn't access the last screw holes at the back. Alright, now that the left section is mostly done, I can start working on the larger and even deeper drawer section on the right, which includes a sliding tabletop. I connected 2 pieces left over from the thicker material to avoid purchasing more plywood. I made some quick domino holes and glued everything as flush as I could. This is important because if the boards are not perfectly leveled, when sanding them flush, you might risk destroying the outer layer of the plywood, which will look horrible. I cut the side panel to size, the horizontal divider, and the sliding top spaces. Because the drawer slides are about 55mm tall, I took advantage and made a shallow box instead of installing a single board of plywood. This way I created a shelf to store paper. In my case, the tissue paper I wrapped the stuff you order from my online store with. I glued and nailed the panels to the shallow pieces and started building the large drawers. I cut a few strips for the shallow sides until I ran out of thick plywood. So I glued scraps from the thinner ones to make thicker material before I was done for the day. The next day, I could remove the clamps and get 2 drawer sides from the thicker piece. I've cut everything to size with my miter gauge at the table saw and drilled pocket holes on all fronts and back pieces. The drawer box with the thicker sides also did receive a thicker bottom, and that's because I plan to store my paper guillotine in there, which weighs quite a lot. I repeated the process for the other shallow drawer, only with a thinner panel at the bottom. I traced the reference line where I wanted the horizontal divider to land and drilled some holes for screws. I found a couple of boxes that made almost the needed height and screwed it from the inside of the cabinet. There. Okay. To give the construction a little more stability, I attach a strip toward the back. It will keep the distance between the vertical panels. Installing this hardware and the drawers were similar to the other four. The sliding top works basically like a drawer, and it ended up measuring 80 by 96 centimeters. It's a pretty good size for an extra surface. It was time to start working on the details and making the external drawer front. I had to glue a few pieces again because, guess what? I was short on the thicker plywood. And honestly, for a painted project, this works just fine because the joints will be invisible at the end. I wasn't sure what to do about the exposed plywood edges, but eventually I decided to cover them up with edge banding. I only had 3/4 inch birch, and the colors seemed fairly close to the plywood I got. I don't know about you, but I never had a good experience with those edge banding trimmers I see most woodworkers use. I'm not sure if I use it wrong or what, but I always seem to get bad results. So if you can recommend a trimmer that works flawlessly and doesn't create tear out, please let me know. I sanded all the visible areas of the cabinet and applied 2 coats of water-based matte varnish. At this point, it seemed right to move the new cabinet to its final place. I cleared the area and sat one last time on the sofa bed. Getting emotionally attached to the things we do makes it a bit harder to consider changes and let things go, but I feel like it is time for the sofa bed to give space for other things to flourish. This is my most viewed project and has given me many subscribers over the years. Even though it isn't my favorite project or design, I give it tons of credit because it put me where I am today. I'll take this moment to thank you all for subscribing and being here with me on this YouTube journey. Some of you may remember this whole project and some might not, but what matters is that we get to be here today, sharing our experiences and learning with each other. Before the final installation, I took the vertical panel off and ran it through the table saw at the same angle of the drawers because it didn't make sense to keep that 90-degree edge on an angled cabinet. I reattached it and applied the edge banding. The 3/4 inch edge banding was not enough to cover the freshly cut edge. It wasn't missing by much, but I imagined it would be really tricky to glue a couple millimeters of edge banding, so I placed the seam line towards the middle and cut the excess material from both sides. I reattached the right compartment to the left one and cut super thin plywood to use as a backing panel for the cabinet. I could finally place the new cabinet near the wall and test opening the glass door. It seemed okay with enough space to get in and out. Now I can focus on making the drawer fronts. More of the same plywood was cut to size, and I angled both ends of the fronts for the trapezoidal drawers. Once I had the first one cut to the correct width, I sneaked on the cut for the other three to match it. I sanded the visible surface and broke the sharp edges with a sanding sponge. To help me decide on the color scheme for the drawers, I made a poll on Instagram. The followers voted, and option B was the clear winner. So let's get into painting. For both colors, I did smear the paint with the tip of the roller into the grain of the wood. I wanted to make sure I didn't get unpainted wood pores showing up in the final result. I didn't like the look of the plywood on the sliding top, so I painted it black too. After a long session of drawer pole brainstorming, I landed on the idea of making the poles seem like simple slats of wood that would go across the entire width. I wanted to reclaim some old pine I had. I joined it to faces on my small joiner and then squared the other two sides of the table saw by progressively taking light passes. I tried something different and used a coving bit on the router table to create a long recess for the fingers to grab. It was made in 2 passes to prevent stressing out the router too much. So when you look at the cabinet, the poles look like simple square slats. This is how they are going to work. I filled the holes in the wood with dowels before sanding and finishing them. I decided to install the poles at this point and drove quite a few screws to ensure they stay straight over time. To attach the false fronts to the drawer boxes, I shot 2 nails to make sure they were visually aligned. Keep in mind that these nail holes will be visible, so please don't do it when building fine furniture. I did it because I wanted a quick and cheap solution, and I will disguise the holes with putty and paint afterwards. Once I open the drawers, I clamp and screw the fronts from the inside for a solid connection. The nail holes were quite visible, so I filled them up. While the putty was drying, I placed the tabletop I made in my last video over the cabinet, and well, I was kinda expecting this, but was still hoping it wouldn't be too bad.
Too small. Oh my god.
I forgot to change the cabinet dimensions on the 3D model because of the large bevel I decided to put on the top at the last minute, so here's a problem I need to deal with. First, I'll attach the top to the base to see the problem more clearly. What the f? I use figure-8 fasteners in the area where there's no horizontal plywood to drive screws through. I made the final paint touches and got to work on the sliding top face frame. I used some more old pine wood and put up this frame that will cover the plywood edge and the drawer slides. I just love having a chance to use these cute little Japanese clamps. Off camera, I also made this trim piece to cover the gap between the top and the cabinet side. I glued the frame to the sliding top and made a tiny fill for the bevel's front gap. I could finally organize the products I sell online and reunite all the items related to ordered packing in this cabinet. There's a place to store large sheets of paper, my guillotine, and custom packaging items. Having it all organized feels great, and the best part is that now I have an extra top that can be pulled out whenever needed, whether it is to fulfill orders or to do some electronics or paper crafting work. My sister comes by occasionally to help pack orders, and she's thrilled about not having to do it on a dusty workbench anymore. I hope this inspires you to build that project you've been putting off month after month. I find it really tricky and rather impossible to find pieces of furniture in stores to fulfill my needs. So building custom stuff from scratch is a fantastic accomplishment that also gives you that satisfying feeling at the end that no store-bought piece can provide. By the way, check out my online shop if you want a pair of socks to warm up the maker in you. I also have woodworking plans, t-shirts, hoodies, pins, and handmade stuff to inspire you in your maker journey. Thanks everyone for watching, and go get your hands dirty. Até já!